We have Sam Goldstein, who is the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships at All Campus. Samantha's diverse professional experiences in research, consulting, and advising across a portfolio of top universities has given her a really unique insights into the online market and enabled her to guide institutions in best practices and data-driven decision-making related to online education. Samantha combines her strong project management and relationship building skills to develop thoughtful, custom, innovative solutions.
So good morning, good afternoon to everybody. It is so great to see you and talk to you today. I am here to talk about data-driven, but more importantly, human-focused strategies to connecting from a distance. So I love Joseph's talk just now about the importance of relationships, overcoming barriers, finding empathy for people you're connecting with remotely. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about 5 short-term and 5 long-term strategies to think about, but these are really transferable outside of higher education. They're really best practices about fostering community and fostering connections. I also want to contextualize this within the realm of what we're going through as a country and as a world. I'm in Chicago, Illinois. And clearly, you know, things have changed dramatically over the past 2 months, but also frankly here in the US in the past week as protests have spread. So I want to think about this in terms of how we're human online and how that line between your online version of yourself and your offline version of yourself are really the same person, the same thing. And so how can we foster connections, foster community now and in the future that will address a lot of the challenges that we're confronting now as a society and, you know, be better in the future. So with that, I'm going to jump in here and I'll answer questions at the end. We have a lot to go through in 30 minutes. So a little bit about All Campus. We're an online program management company headquartered, like I said, in Chicago, Illinois. And basically we partner with universities to market, recruit, and retain for their online programs. We're about 8 years old. We have about 25 university clients. You can see a collection of them on the right-hand side here. And within that portfolio, we have a really great range of programs, about 60, primarily at the master's level, a couple grad certificates, a couple of bachelor's degrees, and over 9,000 students enrolled across this portfolio and growing. So what we found is a lot of the findings today are transferable across institutional type, student type with some little tweaks. And I just want to think about, again, human focus. How do we get 9,000 students across our portfolio enrolled? The answer is All Campus is really focused on the human contact. We don't do scripting, we don't do bots, it's person to person. So with that in mind, I'm going to jump into the first tip, which is one of actually my favorite tips, which is why it's number 1. And that is to add a chat feature to your program website. So you can see a screenshot here. It's a university partner of ours. And what it does is it pops up when you get to a program website and it just asks, how can I help you? We use a tool. It's called Allocate. It's about $15 per user per month. And obviously the need here is to connect with somebody immediately. You're looking at financial aid and you have an immediate question, put it in the box, get an answer from somebody right away. It's real people sitting in our offices on a good day when we're all together here in Chicago, basically answering questions immediately. What's really cool about this tool is that it's passive. So it's running in the background as you're doing other activities or having other conversations. It goes to a ring group. And then that ring group can basically, if someone's available, can answer the question. On nights and weekends or times when you're not available, there's a leave a message feature. And really in terms of how you staff this and how you think about it, it can be a couple hours a day. It doesn't have to be 9 to 5. It can be a couple hours here and there, and leave a message feature helps you catch folks who might be slipping through the cracks on nights and weekends. So we love chat. We have it on all of our sites. It's just, like I said, immediate way, and it's kind of a cool way to connect with a real person and get your answer question live. We at All Campus, that data-driven piece is really important to us because we're only as good as the data that we have and the decisions we make based off of it. So a couple things, if you already have a chat or you're like, that's so easy. We also recommend experimenting with how you use the chat. So a couple findings here on the right, we do A/B testing. One of the tests was about having a live chat call out on the upper right-hand corner and upper navigation. That resulted in a significant increase in chat engagement. And the other cool thing we're trying right now is if you go to a chat and you click it, it'll pop up with some bubble heads. So you can see the photo of the person that you're chatting with, and it basically humanizes the conversation and helps you know that you're talking to a real person. And that had, again, a significant lift in engagement over control. So if you want to try it for a couple months, see how it goes, see how your engagements are, we strongly recommend it and stand by it. Along the same lines, really the goal here is to just start the conversation, meet people where they are. And to that end, we strongly recommend reimagining or rethinking your request for information forms. So on our forms, we only ask for first and last name, email address, and phone number. And I'm going to be totally honest with you, there are some programs where we don't even require the phone number. Cybersecurity programs, it turns out, they don't like to provide that information, and we allow that to happen. So really streamlined. And then the concept of giving somebody a deliverable once they give you their information. So we have a couple different calls to action that we'll use on our forms. We'll use a download brochure or download a career guide, giving somebody something that makes the whole engagement feel less transactional is really important to driving engagement with the forms that we have online. And obviously with the form, you're trying to get somebody to give you their contact information to start the conversation. We have some data in the center column here about different approaches. Above the fold, obviously a good idea. So that's significant lift there. And then adding brochures, a call to action, looking at form width, etc. If you're like, I got an RFI and it's already all set, cool. That's awesome. One thing that I would challenge you to do too is think about your form approach on paid search versus organic. We know that those two audiences behave very differently. Organic folks are typically already a little bit deeper in their research process and primed to give you contact information. Folks on the paid search side are a little bit more suspicious, and you need to kind of lead them in a little bit and have them excited to kind of give you that information. So to humanize the paid side, what we do is a 3-step form where we guide someone by asking them, what's your motivation for going back to school? What's your timeline for returning? And then we make the ask for contact information. So again, thinking about people's comfort in providing this information and making sure that it feels like a worthy trade-off to have that, information shared with our team. To think about engagement in another live way, we recommend tip number 3, embracing webinars. We do a whole host of webinars for our clients. Obviously, these are live events like us today, and they're really valuable, right? Because you can make eye contact with somebody, talk to an expert, answer questions at scale, get a feel for the tone of a place, and humanize that experience a little bit more. We do a couple different webinar types. So prospective students would be information session, application workshop, and then on the back end, we do admitted student webinars. Focusing on the front end, we basically, are trying to drive people to give us their contact information and give them something, again, that just grounds them in the program. We record all of our webinars, just like I think we're doing today for this one. We find it's a really valuable tool towards re-engaging folks. And we also post it on our program website. So think of it as not just a one-time event, but really an evergreen tool that you can use to engage with prospects in the long term. We recommend starting marketing about 2 to 3 weeks out. And then for advanced users, we also recommend thinking about how you segment out your follow-up communications. So if you think about it, there could be 3 buckets. People who registered for webinar and attended, those who registered and didn't attend, and those who never said they were going to come in the first place. How are you going to communicate with them in different ways to basically gauge their interest in the program and drive them towards watching this resource that'll really make a connection for them to the program? A couple of tips we've learned through significant trial and error are the best time to host is 2 p.m. Eastern time. We've tried early evening, we've tried late evening. 2 p.m. is just a sweet spot. I think it has to do with people's lunch hours. So that's worked really well for us. We also saw significant upticks in attendance when we sent reminder communications 15 minutes beforehand. So that might include an email, or if you have text messaging capability and their obviously authorization to text message somebody, we do a little text message poke too. That's been significant. And then finally, the best co-presenter, more than faculty, more than staff, is current students in your online programs. This is a tremendous way to build empathy and to have, prospective students connect with somebody who's literally living this experience and ask really personal questions about how they're balancing work and life, or what the classroom is like. We'd recommend, obviously, prompting the person on the line with how the presentation is going to go and questions that might be asked to make sure that they're prepared for what might come their way in a live event like this. But they're super valuable, and we also recommend a nice touch is to send them a thank you gift afterwards. We're big fans of sending a little swag their way to make them feel like their time is appreciated. Along the same lines, sending people physical stuff goes a huge way towards driving a physical and emotional connection with the program and with the university. So we send branded university swag to all new admits. So not just people who are deposited, but actually folks who are just admitted into the program. So this is a screenshot of one we do for the University of Florida, their online sport management program. It's a box, it's fancy, it's got a Padfolio in it. We've done ones with webcam covers or thumb drives, just a variety of different things that can kind of ground somebody in a university that might not otherwise feel a physical connection to them. And this is kind of elaborate. It doesn't have to be this fancy. It can just be a t-shirt. It can just be a water bottle. We just, frankly, I was thinking about like data to prove this works. We haven't stopped doing it. So I can't tell you that this drives up enrollments by X%, but I can tell you that we believe so strongly in it that we won't stop doing it. And these boxes range between $75 and $200 depending on the content. But again, it's flexible. Do it, with this in your budget, just to ground somebody in the program. If you can, also customizing that item a little bit more is valuable. So we do customize the box and put their name on it, but we also customize a welcome letter in the box just based on our conversations with them along the admissions process, thinking about challenges they overcome to enroll in the program, or talking about what they're excited about in the program, just trying to add a human touch to a process that can sometimes feel a little bit anonymous. And trying to generate that interest and enthusiasm in your program and your university. My last short-term tip is content related. So this is something that's really interesting to think about as both at a programmatic level and at an institutional level. And it's thinking about how your content speaks to online students and people who have never engaged with your university in a physical sense before. A lot of times the content is an afterthought. Your content's been built out for on-ground students. It's what you've always had. And now you're launching online programs. So what do those online students need to know that's different from on-ground students? Some examples would be, how does an online student get help with financial aid? Is there a designated point of contact in the financial aid office that would help them with that? Can they register without meeting with an advisor, or is the meeting remote via Zoom? Do they have to get vaccinated? Some universities still require that for online students. So as you're thinking about connecting online, you don't want students online to feel like an afterthought. You want them to feel like part of your community, a deliberate choice to enroll them in your program. And that basically requires a look at your content just to make sure that you're proactively addressing comments and concerns. The comments here in this middle column are from a survey we did for a client for their online students about their experiences in registering and getting up to speed with programs. And it's qualitative data, but it's important data. So we did ask, how was your process starting as a new student? And then we made adjustments to the university to help them better serve their online students, anticipate questions. This on the right is an example of some FAQs that we get about online platforms, online learning. So just some ideas about the content's really important. You want people to self-serve, but more importantly, feel like you're thinking about them and thinking about their needs. So at this point, we're gonna switch gears a little bit and think a little bit more about long-term things that you might wanna think about when it comes to recruiting online. And the first is about communication overall. So we have, and this is a screenshot on the left-hand side, a very elaborate automated email strategy. It's enormous and frankly, a little bit overwhelming for me to even understand. But what we want to think about is reducing that complexity down a little bit. Do you have an email plan? Do you have a communication plan for the folks who are looking at your programs, for the folks who have said they're going to come, for new students, for existing students? If you don't, this can be manageable. You can think about 5 to 10 emails that you'd want to send, when you'd want to send them, the content that I might include, your calls to action, and just plan out how that would work, how that would look, what kind of content you need, what kind of input you need. We know that it takes 12 to 18 months for folks to make a decision about investing in a master's degree program from the first time they interact with our materials till actually applying for a program. It's a long cycle of thinking about this decision. So from there, we also know that emails are a tremendously important piece of the puzzle. People are engaging with emails before they're engaging with us over the phone or via chat. They're the avenue that somebody can passively engage with content consumption and make a decision of whether or not to proceed with the recruitment process. So super critical, super important. If you're like, oh, I've got these emails down pat, no problem, then we think about, okay, can you tailor your emails a little bit to specific audiences? So if you have a corporate partner that you want to market to specifically and you want to offer them a little discount, do you have an email flow that's for them that acknowledges your relationship with their employer and acknowledges that discount? So thinking about segmenting a little bit more. And then also A/B testing subject lines. Right now we're playing with emojis. So not for all programs, just for the ones that seem like they'd be open to it. But you know, A/B testing works just the way you think it would. You try a subject line with the emoji and a subject line without it. Look at your open rates, look at your engagement rates, and figure out what works. So those things are advanced. I would say if you don't have an email plan going, that's okay. Think about what it looks like and make it manageable for yourself. Chunk it out and then go from there in terms of building out once you know what works and what is resonating with your prospective students. Along the same lines, as in terms of email being important, communication in general is important. So people who are looking at programs online are expecting information quickly. It's just kind of a way of respecting other people's time. So if someone submits an application and you don't get back to them for 2 months, they're going to go somewhere else. You can quote me on that. They are gone. We know it's a significant decline in yield rates and show rates when we wait to communicate mission decisions. So our recommendation is 10 business days from application submit complete to rendering and communicating a decision. If you want to get advanced, we say 5 business days. When we tell clients this, sometimes you can just see like everything exploding out of their head. It's crazy to them, but it pays off because students are looking for more immediate information and more immediate information on how their future is going to look. So some ways to do that, we recommend convening smaller review committees. I've worked in higher education. I've sat in review committees. I've seen 30 faculty talking about one application for an hour. That's great and that's important, but we typically see committees of about 3 people reviewing applications for online programs of faculty. So that way the faculty inputs there and weighed. We also recommend waiving or eliminating standardized tests, including the GRE and the GMAT. I know that's incredibly controversial, maybe less so now, but when we did try that, it sped up the admissions timeline significantly and also resulted for one of our partners who we've tried this with and piloted with significant increases in diversity and a similar, if not better, retention rate for their program. So these are some ways just to lower those barriers and think about connecting at a human level and being responsive to folks. Along the way, I know I'm talking a lot at you about different strategies and you're probably like, Sam, how do I do this? How do I advocate for it? How do I get the resources financially and from a human perspective to do all this work? And please don't boo me off the stage, but I'm gonna tell you, the answer is CRM. We have built one ourselves from the ground up. And what's really cool about the way that we're approaching it is that we're taking marketing data and enrollment data, and holding everybody accountable for performance. So managing costs, managing yield, we're all looking at the same data and understanding where things are from. So obviously when it comes to human, you can only make choices based on the data that you have to advocate for a more human or a more well-staffed perspective and approach on recruiting online. So if you don't know how much you're spending, either in time or in money, you can't make a case for more resources or different resources. So we're able to track back where a new student comes from all the way through from their first point of contact. We know what channels work, we know who they talked to and when they did it. And that just helps us be mindful about who we're recruiting and how we're doing it effectively. Some KPIs are here, nothing mind-blowing, just to say that we're looking at all this data literally every day and making decisions and making justifications on hiring and resource allocation based on this. Tip 9 is a fun one in that it's quantitative and qualitative, and it's a bit about using tools and resources that are available to you to understand the world outside of your program or institution. So we use free tools like Google Keyword Planner and the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System to basically look at supply and demand indicators, right? So how many institutions are out there conferring the same degree as you? Who are you competing against? Who are your peers in terms of ranking or pricing? What are people searching for? Are people searching for a master's of business analytics, or are they searching for a master's of data analytics? How are you tailoring your approach to meet people where they are and understand the very significant decision-making process they're confronting when they're looking at enrolling in an online program? The qualitative piece of this is looking at peer programs, benchmarking, talking to colleagues at other institutions, at conferences, but also secret shopping. This might be a little controversial, but the only way you know what your competitors are doing is by putting your empathy cap on and acting as a prospective student and seeing how quickly they're communicating information, see what kind of webinars you're being invited to. Secret shopping, we do it occasionally for our own research needs, and it helps us just round our experience within a larger market. This is a case study about how we helped an institution using this data to change its name from internet technology to information technology. And the chart down here, it cuts off in February 2019, but basically we've seen a 66% increase in apps started and a 64% increase in new student starts year over year because we're meeting students where they are and what they're searching for. That's just the biggest piece of the puzzle. Find the right people for the right program. My last tip, and I'll leave some time for questions at the end, is really important to me as a person, and that's about fostering collective ownership. So when you're thinking about recruiting for a program, I've been talking a lot about the prospective student experience, and they're part of this puzzle. But I also want to ask us to think about the faculty and staff who have responsibility for these programs. So we have in our organization a true culture of cyclical feedback. We're always feeding information and findings back across our teams to help make sure that the programs we're marketing are as strong and as competitive as possible. So take the feedback that you get across the board and internalize it, discuss it, and implement changes that'll truly positively impact people's experience with your institution and with your programs. On the right-hand side, these are no-brainers. They're frequently heard objections, but what we want to do is be sensitive to prospective students' concerns and anxieties and not strong-arm them into a program, but listen to them and make sure that the programs that we're representing are a true fit for them. So these are objections. We don't overcome the objections. We're just transparent about what this might look like for that prospect and how they might be able to fit into the larger community. So this is a big piece of relationship building and management that I want to end on and just ask, as we're all reflecting upon what's currently happening, ask you to think about that too. So this is a quick summary slide of all the information. It also has my contact information, what we talked about.